All right, welcome back to World History 2. We're going to start with Unit 12. So we talked in Unit 11 a little bit about World War I and the interwar period. So the point in which we're getting problems that are going to lead to bad leadership, or you need strong leadership. And while these leaders of World War II, a lot of them were bad people, they were strong leaders. They promised to fix things, and for the most part, they were able to fix the economy, whether the Great Depression was slowing down or if they were able to provide jobs by putting everyone in the military that it was a male or finding some like funding projects. They were able to fix a lot of those problems. So guys, we have our first fascist leader is going to be Benito Mussolini, and he is a leader in Japan, or in Italy, my apologies. And his big thing is nationalism. He has to look perfect in all in which he does. So if I show you a picture of Mussolini, Mussolini is never going to be beside of people that are taller than him, really. He's going to be with groups of people that look like ideal Italians or seen as a superior race in his point of view. And even in pictures like here, you see him when they're saluting to him. They're about all his height, and they want to look like him. They're all similar height. You can't be short and be in his army. You got to look perfect, or at least the front lines or the groups in pictures. Um, he's going to try to have put blame, and he's going to invade Ethiopia and be unsuccessful in this. But he wants to make the Roman Empire again. Thinking about it like make Rome great again. It's his kind of ideology that the Roman Empire should be what it once was. So the other guy that's going to be a problem is Adolf Hitler, and he's going to be the Nazi dictator of Germany. It's going to become Nazi Germany. Here he is with Mussolini. Both have that idea of nationalism. His idea is blonde hair, blue eyes, and he's going to be in prison. He's going to write Mein Kampf or My Struggle, and he's going to bring anti-Semitism into his worldview, and that's going to very much work for people. He doesn't, while he tries to take power, doesn't make his whole personality hating Jews. He might mention it as like a little footer or a footnote, but for the most part, he's like, here, I'm going to make sure your kid can afford glasses. Here's Volkswagen, which means the folks' car. Every good German should have a car, and he's going to make it possible for these people to have these things. So not only does he say these things, he proves it. And while he talks bad about the Jews, he blames them for hoarding wealth. He blames them for being the bankers and the business class, and they were a big part of that business class. So he's going to put blame on them, and that's anti-Semitism. The U.S. president is going to be FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt is going to do the New Deal, get us out of the Great Depression. Serves about 4 terms as U.S. president, longest ever, and it's why we have a presidential term limit. He does have polio and will die towards the end of World War II. Our other president, which served as his vice president, was Harry Truman, and he's going to be the guy that nukes Japan at the end of World War II. He's from Missouri, dairy farmer. For generals, we have Eisenhower, who was the leader of the Allied forces in Europe. He's going to plan D-Day. He's going to be president after Harry S. Truman when he gets home, very popular. On the other side, in the Pacific Theater, we're going to have MacArthur. MacArthur's always with that iconic picture of him with the pipe. He is going to be the leader during the island hopping campaign in which we try to get to Japan. He's going to be in the Philippines right before the Death March. He's going to land and talk to the Japanese. Marshall is going to be another guy, and he's going to do the Marshall Plan after. My bad. He's going to do the Marshall Plan, and he's going to try to rebuild Europe, and he's going to spend U.S. dollars, and we'll talk about that soon. On the side of the British or the UK, we have Winston Churchill, very iconic guy. On the Russian side, we have Stalin. So you can see we have a lot of leaders, very controversial ones even today. And on the Japanese side, we have Tojo and Hirohito's the emperor. This guy's the shogun, the guy that actually has the true power. You can see with his nationalism, he believes very much in all those fancy badges of honor. So World War II is going to start. Depends on your perspective. If you're an Asian living in China or a Japanese, you're going to, in the early 1930s, Manchuria is going to be invaded by the Japanese. If you're from the European perspective, you're going to say 1939. The German and Russian or Soviet Union invasion of Poland is going to start the war. And if you're on the American perspective, World War II is going to begin. Like at World War I, we started isolated, but from our point of view, it's going to start in 1941, December 7th, in which Pearl Harbor occurs. Big things are going to be the German Blitzkrieg. And the German Blitzkrieg is just it just means rapid attack and almost instantaneous. We're going to hit you with our planes. We're going to hit you tanks. We're going to artillery and shell you, and we're going to push up. It's a very simple ideology, and it worked very well in World War II. World War I, remember, was fought in trenches over short periods of land. The Germans are going to do this Blitzkrieg. They're going to attack. They're going to penetrate lines and then encircle and capture armies. Hitler's going to make it into France within 6 weeks, which was definitely not thought possible in the World War I, but they're going to use industrialization, tanks, and innovations of planes and bombs and guns that weren't there in World War I. The big event with Poland is going to start France and Britain in it. You're going to see in 6 weeks the French are defeated. That leaves the British versus the Germans for a time, and the Battle of Britain is going to take place. The Battle of Britain is the Luftwaffe is going to be bombing and shelling Britain, but no, everyone refuses to give up in Britain. They cannot invade through the water. Luckily for the British, they are across the pond, and they are bombed for several months, and a lot of it's firebombed. A lot of it's going to happen in London. What's going to really change the war is Germany is going to invade the Soviet Union. What they really need is oil reserves. And what they need in Russia, or have an abundance of, is oil. Before, oil wasn't that important, but now that we've got to World War II, it runs industry. It runs almost everything to win a war. Okay, even today, why is it so important in the Middle East? We need oil. The Battle of Stalingrad is going to be one of the bloodiest battles in world history. You can look here, and Stalin tells his own people, not one step back, that you'll be killed if you turn back. 1.9 million casualties just for the Soviets. 40,000 civilians. It's going to be very terrible. And actually, no, it's 800,000 Germans, 1.1 million Soviets. Soviets actually lose about 20 million people in World War II. And the United States doesn't even lose a million, so it's a very big difference. And the United States is nowhere close to a million. But the Battle of Stalingrad is going to be very violent. Any kids that try to bring water to Germans are going to be shot and sniped, or even if Germans see kids try to bring water to Russian troops, they're also going to be shot. It's going to be urban warfare. It's going to be inside of cities, and it's going to be a very bad situation. But the Soviets are able to knock off the advance and the invasion, so that is one positive to it. Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor gets the United States involved because we embargo and refuse to sell them oil. And what's going to change the war is going to be D-Day, in which the United States, Britain, and what's left of the French are going to land in France, and they are going to take over small portions of land and start taking land back. And they're going to start a two-front war. So the Soviets are fighting the Germans on the east. The American, British, and French, also a big portion of Canadians, are going to be there fighting them on the west. It's going to become a two-front war in which Germany is inevitably on both sides. Benito Mussolini will be defeated by his own people, hung by a bridge. And our campaign for the United States was defeat Hitler first. So our point of view or philosophy was we have to get our allies and help them. If not, Hitler will definitely defeat them. So we are going to be successful in taking over this, and doing the defeat Hitler first campaign. Of course, Mussolini's defeated with that before Hitler. But when we take over and Hitler is defeated, us and the Soviets are going to realize we got a problem. We'll talk about that in the next unit with the Cold War. We don't agree economically. We don't agree government-wise. So it's a big question of who's going to dominate after World War II. So we defeat Hitler pretty early, but our main enemy, the Japanese, are going to be a different story. We do something called island hopping. Back at this time, you couldn't just fly around the world like you can today. Planes could not go around. You couldn't send a large number of troops. So what we do is we start from near Hawaii, and then we didn't lose Hawaii to the Japanese, but we're going to go from these little islands, and we're going to take them one by one. We can't get to the Japanese mainland because Japan, you can see all here in the blue, they have Manchuria, China, they got the Philippines, they have Indonesia, they have parts of India. They have quite a bit of territory, and we have to defeat them and take them out of that land. The Japanese live by a life of Bushido, which is honor above all else, and they don't believe and with their religion of Shintoism, that suicide is a sin that takes you to hell. They actually don't really have a hell in Shintoism. They have ancestor worship. So how do you defeat an army that would rather kill itself than surrender? And it is a terrible situation. So island hopping, we're going to be successful, but it's going to be fighting for inches, and it's going to be Iwo Jima. It's going to be all sorts of terrible battles that are going to be super, super deadly for United States soldiers. Japanese don't care to suicide bomb. They don't care to act like they surrender with a grenade in their pocket. They don't care. They are willing to do anything to help their emperor who they worship. So it's going to be hard, but the United States is going to win with the nuking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We realize we can't do this by invading. It would cost like 1 million American lives. All of our allies are not really there to help us. But we have to nuke, and we have these new weapons and technology. So we do nuke Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the question was that ethical? And today that is still a question. And we still today think it is necessary. Japan, they were down to like 1,000 calories a day with their troops. They realized there was no way to win, but they're not going to give up, and we'd have to invade the island. Even civilians would kill themselves to stay away from American occupied zones. So we didn't want the whole entire country to die out. So World War II will end with that event. And other problems going on in World War II, or outcomes, is we end empires. The British Empire, the French Empire, they're all gone. We have two superpowers in the world, the United States and the Soviet Union. We have the war crime trials, which are the Nuremberg trials. And what we do is we put Nazis on trial. Instead of just taking these guys like the Soviets did, putting them in a line and shooting them, we take our Supreme Court and we show the world that we believe in justice not only for our people, but for everyone in the world. And we put these guys on trial. A lot go to prison. A lot are executed. But we come to conclusions. And we realize that this is how the world should establish the United Nations. And the United Nations will lead this. The Soviets, the British, the Americans, the French, we're all going to do this sort of conversation. You see they have headphones on. You have people speaking Russian, German, Eastern European languages, French, British. There's all kinds of different people here, and it makes it a huge event. But we put these war criminals on trial, those that do the Holocaust, and we'll talk about that. But we're going to get the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that establish rights for people based on the Holocaust. So the Holocaust is awful, of course. Jews are going to be captured by the Germans, and Hitler's blame on them is going to have people boycott them initially, and then eventually they're going to be moved to ghettos, and then eventually they're going to be shipped to concentration or work camps. Hitler's eventually going to come up with the final solution in which he knows he lost the war, and he's going to execute as many Jews as he can before he goes. And it's estimated over 6 million were killed in the Holocaust. So genocide is systematic and purposeful destruction of racial, political, religious, or cultural groups. It could be a race or religion. We have Jews in Germany. We have the Armenians by the Ottoman Empire. We have the Great Purge of peasants and government officials by Stalin, which made World War II complicated. He was scared of anybody rising to power that might take his position. In Cambodia, you have the Khmer Rouge led by Pol Pot, that are going to go against educated individuals like artists, technicians, government officials, monks, minorities. And then you're going to have the Tutsi minority by the Hutu in Rwanda. So we have the United Nations, we have a Declaration of Human Rights, we have a Marshall Plan. The United States rebuilds Europe with $14 billion of aid, and it brings our industry back going. After World War I, the Great Depression is going to happen because all these factories quit working. There's no need for them anymore. The United States shifts their factories to rebuilding European bridges. They build roads. We bring in factories for our industries. We bring restaurants. We bring stuff like Coke in. And that $14 billion really brings us closer to Western Europe. But Eastern Europe is going to be took over by the Soviet Union due to the split of Germany. So Germany's going to be split down the middle. On this side, Western powers are going to use American money to rebuild. On the east, the Soviets say that money's not allowed, and these groups start to love us, and the Soviets won't allow these groups to start liking us because they force communism on them. So we're going to have NATO, and Berlin and Germany's going to be split like this. Well, Berlin's on its own over here, but you're going to have the American zone, the French and British zones, which combine, and the Soviet zone. And the Soviet zone is going to be East Germany. It's going to be communist and a dictatorship led by Joseph Stalin. On the Western side, it's democratic and capitalist. You can vote for who you want, and you can buy what you want, and you can earn your own power. So if you look at NATO versus the Warsaw Pact, you can see that Europe in the red is split by communist countries and the green is capitalist countries. And it's going to be where both armies are at this border here known as the Iron Curtain. Both groups are going to be nervous that the other one wants to invade. When we take over Japan, we enforce a constitution in which Hirohito loses his power. And the people have democratic rights. They can vote. And we take away their military. We take away their firearms. And today, that's why we still protect them. They don't have a military whatsoever. All right, so that will finish World War II. We'll get back to the Cold War on the next unit.